Welcome back everyone. I'm Saj Under Heaven, and today we'll be covering the second part of how to scale intelligence. If you haven't seen the first one, I would recommend watching that and coming back to this one, because each guide expands upon the other. In the first guide, we focused on what intelligence was, the problematic errors humans commit when scaling intellect, and the primary categories that go within intelligence. For this guide, we will be focusing on interpreting intelligence, exactly what to look at when gauging a feat of brilliance and how to go about assessing it. My goal is to equip you with the tools you need to prove, judge, and convey how smart your favorite character is. A quick disclaimer, my goal is to expand the smart character community while simultaneously developing how we scale and making it comprehensible for everyone. I'm not here to convince you to scale like me or for everyone to scale the same exact way. There would be no community, no room for discourse or debate if that was the case. It would be boring. Instead, I'm here to provide more relevant and consistent approaches that everyone can use universally. The coolest thing about scaling intellect is that we can tackle different avenues of intelligence the same way and have different scopes of analysis. Intelligence scaling is extremely fun, rewarding, and even meaningful when done right. Okay, let's begin. First thing we need to understand is that scaling intellect should be perceived as situational and within the given context, a case-by-case approach. Why? Remember, the utilization of intellect has infinite outlooks. It wouldn't be accurate and valid to have a fixed approach for every possible situation. It would demerit certain feats and amplify others, depending on the subjective qualifiers you establish. So, it's best to eliminate any preconceived notions or systems of scaling that you possess. Remember, assessing everything case by case is key. Now, with that being said, what is the best approach to scaling? It's something that I call the Trinity. To begin, the Trinity is not a system. Instead, it's an approach that covers all relevant grounds and facets of intellect. It's a universal perspective that balances the objective with the subjective. Everyone has different opinions, and we all gravitate towards different aspects of intelligence that we value over the other, and we have to respect that, while trying to be as objective and critical as possible. So, I developed an approach that can allow people to scale their favorite characters however they want, while still covering the relevant elements of intellect. You have all the control here. What exactly is the Trinity? The Trinity covers the three most vital aspects of intelligence scaling. Every system of scaling, every approach, and every perspective can be decomposed into these three factors. Those being, number one, how difficult the circumstances are, number two, the methodology of intellect, and finally, the end results of the feat. These are the three main focal points that everyone looks to analyze. The differences in scaling really come down to how much we value one above the other. Take my good friends and exceptional content creators, Kyo, Koji, and Cap Edits, two of the most popular SCD content creators. These two have vastly different opinions when it comes to scaling intellect. Why? Well, it comes down to this. Kyo Koji values how intellectually stimulating and how difficult the circumstances of intelligence are, while Cap Edits focuses primarily on methodology, how one goes about the situation at hand. So, before you start typing on how wrong they are in the comment sections, understand their approach and what they value. For the sake of accuracy and objectivity, we're going to assume that all three components of intelligence scaling are equal. Circumstances, methods, and results should all be on equal terms with each other. Here's where the fun or personal touches of scaling come in. Remember, each achievement of brilliance should be taken on a case-by-case basis, meaning that it's very much possible and likely that each feat has a component of intellect that surpasses the other. It's your job as a scaler to determine the ordering of the hierarchy of each element within the Trinity for each different feat and how relevant each one is. Take for example Liar Game. The methodology of Liar Game far surpasses its circumstances and end results. While a series like Death Note hinges upon how difficult the situation is, it would be unfair to take one above the other. Instead, we should value it based on what the feat indicates and what it's trying to convey to us in the first place. I try my best to value all three equally, but again, I want to give you room and freedom of choice. I want everyone to have fun with this while still striving for truth and accuracy. This will allow you to buff any character of your choosing because you underscore their true potential. Now, let's break down what each different criterion of outsmarting means, starting with circumstances. When scaling circumstances, it's important to highlight the overall context of the feat, exactly what is going on, the adversity being faced, how much pressure and emotional toil one is facing, the individual goals and sub-goals a character is looking to achieve, even the goals or conditions that need to be fulfilled simultaneously, the competency of the opposition or just the competition in general, what exactly they overcome, what was at stake, how novel the situation was, the uncertainty of the situation, the variables that impede one's success, and these variables are not contingent just on human or adversarial elements. These can also be overwhelming resources, influence, fulfilling specific conditions, the limitations each character is forced to work with, and just about anything that provides obstructions to one's ingenious aspirations. It's impossible to break down a character's methods and end results without contextualizing what they went through. So these were just general examples and conditions that I laid out, but it can be pretty much anything you think of that adds to the difficulty of the feat. Depending on the feat itself, there could be even more factors that I didn't list off. I'm now going to show you guys how to analyze the contextual adversity within feats. We're just going to break down the contextual adversity and not anything else, so no methodology or no end results. Purely the circumstances, starting with Light Yagami's iconic potato chip scene. I decided to use this one as it's both iconic and easily digestible. Keep in mind that I'm not going to go too in depth with this analysis. I'm just going to be providing a general outline that can be duplicated within other feats. Okay, so number one, let's lay out the general context. Light Yagami's room is wiretapped. He's being watched by 64 cameras all from different angles, and the one behind this operation is L. Lawlet. He's watching in a separate area via monitors. The competition in this circumstance is L, but more importantly, it's L's observational skills that Light is up against. It's important to highlight and contextualize the specific forms of intellect that are relevant to the situation that the enemy is using. Imagine if we replaced L with Yuichi. Yuichi is great in terms of manipulation and deception, but he's not on L's level in terms of observation. Yuichi's ability to manipulate or deceive doesn't have any relevance in L's position, meaning that the opposition in their name don't matter as much as the exact skills, resources, and intelligence the person possesses and is directly using against you to hinder you in any way. In this case, the obstructions and difficulty come from L's peerless observation skills, the 64 cameras, and the wiretaps. Let's keep going. The Death Note allows Light to control the time of death, but Light cannot rely on that privilege since L knows that Kira can control the time of death. This would be an example of a limitation that Light has to overcome. Light has to prove to L that the criminals are being killed while Light is under surveillance. This would be an example of a goal that needs to be accomplished. L will be paying attention to whether or not Light was watching the broadcast if the state of death continues. If a criminal broadcasting on TV dies, L will infer that Light is likely Kira. But if the criminals stop dying when Light is being watched by L will also infer that Light is likely Kira. So either way, Light will be convicted. It will thus boil down to Light being able to eliminate criminals while giving L the impression that he had no knowledge of them. If you remember point 4, I stated Light's main goal. This is an example of the same goal, but now we extracted some difficulty or adversity from it. We added that Light has to also give the impression that he has no knowledge of the criminals being executed. Another limitation, another factor, another condition that needs to be fulfilled. It's important to extract how difficult the goals are in order for us to understand the entire scope of adversity. And the way we do so is by increasingly adding these conditions, limitations, and obstructions. The pressure is of course extremely prevalent here. He has to be near perfect in his execution or he'll be caught, losing everything he's worked for and possibly his own life. I like to encompass everything into one cohesive line. It would look something like this. Light Yagami has to execute criminals with his Death Note while showing L he has no knowledge of the criminals being killed because L knows that Kira can control the time of death. His room is wiretapped so he can't speak to Ryuk. His room is full of 64 cameras that watch almost every angle, and he's being watched by L, who has stupendous observational skills, so Light has to be near perfect in his execution. So this is a fairly comprehensible outline of what you want to delineate in terms of circumstances and the difficulty within feats. Finally, I want to talk about a perspective and condition I believe most people should account for within their scaling. It has to do with competition, but more specifically, what counts as great competition, because obviously the smarter your competition is, the more impressive your feat will be. But what does smarter mean in regards to competition? You see, it's more complex than what we think it means. Let me explain what I mean. Let's look at the anime/manga known as One-Outs. The main character, Tokochi Toa, is one of the most brilliant minds in SED, but he lacks true competition. He doesn't have an L. Lawlet or even Takuya Yagami who actively looks to hinder him. However, I'm going to ask you to reinvestigate your idea of competition for just a minute. In episodes 5 through 9 in One-Outs, it covers a very prolific baseball game known as Rain Game, where Tokochi executes a brilliant strategy to overcome a massive amounts of obstacles. If you diagnose a strategy and start thinking about his competition, none of them would be on the level of L. Lawlet, let alone Takuya, not even Mello, Ryun, or Nagumo. Now, what if I told you there are specific instances where one's competition can be just as devastating and difficult to overcome as the characters I just listed, even though those characters I listed would no-diff them in a general outsmarting situation? Enter Itsuki Takami, the main competition to Tokochi in Rain Game. Nobody in their right mind would put Itsuki Takami ahead of any relevant character within the SCD community. He would lose to everyone, but in this instance, within a baseball game, he's arguably even more competent than a Takuya Yagami, Mello, or Will Graham type character. He provides an even more strenuous challenge than the other three within the specific circumstance of a baseball game. Are you starting to understand my point? There's a concept known as crystallized intelligence, where one uses the knowledge that has been built up over time and applies it to different fields of expertise. Itsuki does this within the realm of baseball. You see, Itsuki is known to be a prodigy. He has unique skills and talents that apply to baseball. He even reasons out what Tokichi is up to and can strategize countermeasures because of his immense knowledge of the game of baseball. In this case, the term outsmarting transpires through a baseball game. Imagine we replace Will Graham for Itsuki in this case. There's no possible way Will Graham can be as formidable as Itsuki in this specific case of a baseball game. Even though Will outsmarts overall, he does not have the skills and knowledge of baseball, rendering him useless. So the main point is that sometimes characters with immense crystallized intelligence that is applied to a specific scenario can triumph over characters who are known to be smarter in a general sense. With this perspective, we can conclude that Tokuchi Toa does have competent competition. So that's going to do it for this guide. Don't worry, I don't plan on taking another 7 months to release the next part. The next part will cover methodology and end results. I hope this video was insightful and helped you guys in terms of scaling. Take care.